because of this, especially when you compare them to their West African peers. Now, on the issue of political landscape, you realize that across the neighboring environment, we have some of our neighboring countries that have gone through coup d'etat. There's some unstable political climate. You wouldn't want to probably do business there, but then you look at Ghana and you don't have that issue. You look at the macro side, and here that is where the biggest concern is, because now things are not in the best possible state that we would have ideally wanted. But you go some few years back and you realize that we had a very stable macro framework where exchange rates, interest rates were at reasonable levels. The past 2 years have been a challenging one for Ghana, but go back some few years before that and you see a very supportive macro framework. And we are even on the path where we are on the path of recovery. So you realize that even in the financial sector, where they suffered some huge losses in 2022. Last year, they posted record profits, and this year, that journey is still continuing. So the macro isn't looking good, but for some sectors, there are some recovery that is going on. Then the infrastructure. Again, there are challenges. I would say that there are no challenges, but there are challenges. But we have good roads, we have airport that is able to connect cities, and all of these things are things that you look out for. And the Ghanaian people are friendly people. So you look at all of these things, and I will say that Ghana isn't, let's say, a no-brainer. Yeah. There are some obvious concerns, but when you compare them to their peers, then Ghana is still an attractive place to do business.
That's quite interesting. I mean, in your experience, would you say that Ghana is ripe for business, or doing business in Ghana, the economy supports it?
I mean, I think Kingsley has done a very good job highlighting the very key indicators that any business person would want to pay attention to. And at the end of the day, beyond all the other factors, with the exception of economy, everybody can say that we've enjoyed a stable democracy in the last, over 30 years, if my count is good as right, because we recently celebrated 30 years of constitutional, rule and all of that. So, yes, you can talk about a very good, stable democracy, which of course has its lapses, but generally across the whole world, I think Ghana is doing quite very well. But in terms of the economy, that's where every business person will be paying attention to. A few years back, you would rush to want to start a business in Ghana. Today, for all of us that are doing startups, it's a big, question mark that you have to answer. And even if you are right with your analysis, the next morning anything could happen. We slept 2 days ago with dollar around 13 cedis. We woke up in the next morning was around 14. So you see the inconsistencies that is happening in the last 3 years have been overwhelming, that any business person should worry about. And we can talk about electricity. I think he talked about a number of them. Electricity and security were one of the few things that he did not utter. And electricity for me, particularly for the business that I run, like a pharmacy, that we run 24/7, you expect the drugs to be in a certain level of atmosphere and condition, and the lights keep going on and off. It's a big problem because we need to we're currently running on a plant. And imagine if your business is 3-4 years and you're running on a plant for 24/7, everything is going to go into cost of production. Yeah. You'd have very little profit to even retain to be able to do any other expenses and all of that. So it's a big problem. I think the electricity issue is one issue that we need to pay attention, because every business runs on light. Everything you do runs on light. I'm not sure that if there were light, we would have the show that we're having here in the first place. So that's one aspect of it. And of course, security. Except in recent times where there's been a few attacks on some businesses here and there, I don't think that security-wise we've had much of a problem. I think the police service and the security agents have been doing quite a good job. So I would say yes, it's not bad to do business in Ghana. Business prepares you to be tough, so
okay.
One way or the other.
Maybe it's tough so that not many can do it, right? It weeds out some, right? The weak ones. Let's run through the gamut of doing business in Ghana. Let's start from the very beginning. Since you are already in it, you shared some very interesting experience for us. Registering. You have the idea. Now you need to formalize it. Registering a business in Ghana. How easy or difficult is it? So that we go from there to here, then we'll be gauging Ghana and we'll be grading Ghana as we go along. Registering. Ease of registering a business in Ghana.
Well, I think with the legislative bit of business, we don't really have much of a difficulty, except that, of course, just like it's, very present in every aspect of the country, there are always middlemen that interface between you and the actual authorities, which is a big deal. So you may go to the Registrar General to try and register your business. You can get all the documents necessary for you to register. All the conditions precedent you may have them, but it definitely has to go through somebody who has to go through another person. And a number of times, we're being honest here, the number of people that it goes through are not people that you actually even see in the offices. These are people that, on a very large scale, actually have much access than even some of the people in the office there. But I think even if it would take that long, I think a month or two, you should have your certificate and then you're good to go. So in terms of, the legislative bit, I don't think it's really much of a difficulty in doing that. I just think that a number of people have very little idea and knowledge of how the process itself runs and what you need to know before you even want to start registering a business. That's a key thing, because I've encountered a number of people who intend to register their business and they have difficulty even differentiating between what a limited liability is and
sole proprietorship.
Exactly, a number of them. So there's not been much education on those key, criteria for people to understand what sectors they even want to get into. A number of people start as sole proprietor and realize that, hey, what I'm doing is not sole proprietor, and you have to go change a number of things. So just the education bit of it, but I don't think that getting the documents is really tiresome like that.
Isaac Aboa just joined us, the CEO of Melo Technologies. We're marking Ghana, doing business in Ghana, from registration to the very end. 0 to 10, 0 being the lowest. How would you mark registering and business in Ghana? How the ease or difficulty of registering the business?
I think that Worship said that obviously in Ghana there are middlemen interfacing between the authorities and the actual organizations that have to do almost anything. I think that if you get right people, which are, I guess, satellite agents that would initiate the process for you, it is relatively easier for you to get your documents. Depending on how people pay, right? I think the problem really is, so in the UK, for example, if you wanted to register your business, the process is mostly online. In the US, it's the same. If you wanted to expedite things, the cost of expedition and getting things fast would be to pay more. And that's something that we've not figured out in this country. If you're going for your US visa, the expedition is just a letter. But for the UK visa, for example, you have to pay, I think, almost twice the amount. And we should bring that. We should institutionalize that as part of our process, that if you want things done fast. And the truth is that most people want things done fast in this country because they know how slow our systems can be. So I would mark it, if you went through the official channels, maybe a 4. If you went through somebody, probably a 7 or 8.
Yeah, but if it is legal, like going through that person, if it's legal, somebody has set up a business.
Yeah, people do set up businesses for that.
All they do is register businesses, then it's allowed, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so now you've registered a business. Let's look at infrastructure. For a business that needs an office space, ease or difficulty of getting, as the first timer, he wants to sell, give me the most basic stuff the guy wants to sell, and he needs a small shop. Ease and difficulty, how are we from it? Maybe Kingsley, help me out here. The guy wants to sell something. His business involves a widget, a gadget, that needs to be put into a certain brick and mortar. We'll come to the tech space and all that. Getting a brick and mortar presence in Ghana's business landscape, how easy or difficult is it?
There are, when it comes to locations for a business, I would broadly categorize them into 2 places. Or there are the locations where you need to be there because for your business you need visibility. And there are locations that you can't be there, nobody will know about you. But of course for your business you wouldn't need that. So you see some businesses that have their offices in prime areas because for the nature of the business, they need that. You can also see some businesses that have their office in somebody's backyard because for the nature of the business, it allows that. So when you look at these 2, then we can have the conversation. Now, for the ones that need a visible office places, the challenge here is normally the cost of the rent. So you realize that, and that is a general problem when you come to the whole real estate side here. So you realize that beyond the owners of the property asking for maybe a longer payment term, or like asking for like a longer duration, like let's say
2 years,
3 years advance, then sometimes they are pricing in dollars. Like there are places in Ghana where people are paying rent and they are priced in dollars. So as you look at the economics, and it doesn't make sense. You are going to sell in cities, but you are going to pay rent in dollars. And the moment you start building your business to a certain point, you can't leave that place because people associate your identity to that location. It means you are forced to keep paying it. So on that front, that is where you see the challenge. The fact that rent advances continue to be a challenge, and the fact that some of these places also do price in dollars, that is it. So on that side, I would say find a prime location. I'll give it a lower rating, maybe a sub 5. But if you want a normal location for any other thing, which normal location could just be, like I said, some corner spots where you can be able to just have an office presence, so that you can at least show somebody that you do have presence. Then there are obvious places that you can even get to. The other bit which is happening right now, which is very interesting, is how people are now creating co-location and smaller hubs. So there are instances where you see businesses having their presence in maybe just having a hub. Their presence in somebody's hub. They don't need to own the place. They come in as and when they are able to use that on their forms. And these are very flexible for the business owner, because then you don't need to now pay for 2-year advance. If maybe you want to show up physically for 2 days, you just show up. You give people your identity, and we are seeing a lot of these places coming up. So that is also at least solving the issue for the second bit of people who do not need that much of a visibility. So yeah, on that side, higher rates and more development, I would say 7, but prime areas, a sub 5.
What was Danny? What was your experience like looking for a location?
Well, I think the first thing that we actually need to understand and answer is that, does your business need a place? Normally, these are the indicators that you must find out. A number of businesses get places and shut down because they're not able to keep up with the expense and all of that. And you realize that for some of those businesses, they can actually run virtually within the very first 2 years before they even get a place. But it depends on the type of business that you're running. And the type of business determines where exactly you should also be. For example, like the pharmacy, there are types of pharmacies. There are clinical pharmacies, there are community pharmacies. So if you're looking forward to opening a clinical pharmacy, obviously your location should be within the pharmacy, the hospitals, I mean. Those are places where you'd want to place yourself. Okay. If you're looking at community, then you're understanding what market really are you pursuing, because the communities vary in Ghana. The sales and the understanding of health in a place like where Z is located would totally be different from a place like Amasamai, where we operate. And so if you're expecting that the people are going to move that fast to come and buy drug in Amasamai the way they do here, that's going to be a problem. It means you would have to do a lot more to get the attention of the people. But it's also relatively, lesser in terms of cost for those areas than it is for here.
Okay.
It totally, I think for here, I've done a scanning before. We wanted to open one branch around this place. And you literally need about, you're running on 4,000 a month for a store.
4,000 Ghana cedis.
4,000 cedis for the rent for a store, which is expensive, right? But if you're looking at a place like Amasamai and Co., you literally can be paying around 600 a month or 1,000. At most.
So there's a trade-off between the ease with which you make sales here, but it's more expensive. The difficulty that you would make sales there, but it's less expensive.
Exactly.
You must.
So you must wait. So you probably would want to start at a place where the cost is not as high. When you earn more, you can look for transitioning, which is fair, and opening across board. But understanding, the cost, it's an overarching approach, and then the issues, it comes with its benefits. Each one has its own issue. You get the whole point. Here, you'll be competing with a number of other pharmacies that are also providing top-level services to the people. It means you have to compete regularly. There, maybe not like that. And you can be able to situate yourself properly and get your own market, get yourself well positioned and understand the people. So location really depends on the type of business that you're opening, the market you're pursuing. Those key things are very important. And of course, your startup capital, if you don't have much, I don't think you should be looking for a place where it's going to take a lot from you, because production itself is taking a number of money from you, then you want to also go and all the places, because I mean, aside the pharmacy we run, there are other businesses that all of us do that we don't necessarily use a place for it. You can, because you're already spending more on data and a number of things, so you can get a lot more job done without necessarily looking for a place. But I think it is relatively okay in some areas and very expensive in other areas. The booming part of Accra is expensive.
Yeah, it must be. Do tech startups need a present at any point in their journey?
So you could operate in the entirety of your journey without an office. So globally, I think it's GitHub. I'm probably not sure of this. It's not GitLab. GitLab is one very big company. So, I mean, there's a technicality of what the business they do, so I'll not go into that. But they started remotely from day one, and they have been remote, and they are more than $1 billion, right? But it is in a US culture and a digital space where there is an understanding of doing digital business. Our registration process, because technically in the registration process there has to be someone coming to confirm the place of location where you do your business, and they want to see an office setup of a sort. There is no problem, and this is done in the US too, there's no problem setting up a business with a space if there is no law or there is no culture that enforces you to want to be working in that space to show legitimacy of the business process. Because the office could be just an address for receiving official documentation, mails, etc. Right? So here in Ghana, it's very difficult because people would want to come to your office. They would prefer to want to know that this business has a proof of legitimacy through the physical structure that exists. Yeah. But for the most part, you don't need it. It depends on your operation. Although in the beginning of building any technology products, it's good to have your team in one place. And it's very cranky, and so you want people to be doing things very fast. You want to control the environment that enables the production of your product eventually, and so it has its benefit. But you don't necessarily have to do that. You can get all your employees remote, and also it depends on the type of business you do. For example, so for some businesses, customer service need to be present. For some businesses, customer service, they don't need to be present on site. So it also depends on your business. But I mean, this is a country where we have even some embassies, etc., operating their customer services in India, right? But we as a people don't have a problem with that. But if a startup dares to have no physical presence, then we look at it in a different way. What I also want to bring attention to is some of the things that Kingsley, for example, mentioned. I think that what government and our laws should be trying to rectify is the very unscrupulous act of charging in USD, right? And the amount of time that people want to, the amount of rent period that people want you to pay an advance for. So those advance payments of 12 months, 2 years are just ridiculous. Some of these co-working spaces are relatively expensive for the space they give, but the reason why people opt for that is that you get to pay as you go, as in daily payment, month-over-month payment, which makes it relatively easier. Because, businesses have contracts that are yet to be paid, etc. So if you can really make it easy, no matter where price differentiation as a result of the location is, if we're able to make it easy for businesses to pay month-over-month, pay 3 months advance, at most 6 months, it is relatively easier for them to do that than to ask people to pay, for example, $1,000, $2,000 a month for 2 years, for 1 year. that really cripples the business, especially in businesses where you don't even know you're going to make bank yet.
There is even a term in that space called goodwill, and it's separate from the rent charges, where the goodwill is something like you pay a lump sum for like 10 years or 15 years, depending on the location and the size. There's something they call goodwill. So aside the rent we've all agreed, you must release some lump sum like 20,000. That's goodwill for 15 years. Yeah. It means that every month the rent must be paid, or that 2-year advance, but then you must give a...
Must also not forget agency fees, right? Yeah. Which is, I mean, the agency fees have been sort of accepted by most people now, but what is becoming a diversion, which is even more ridiculous, is that you have to pay for the agent to go and look for the space, and that cost is different from when they actually get the space.
Yeah, that they will get.
So you have to pay for their transportation, and the agents will come and say, "Oh, today I went for 5 places, and tell them my transportation was 200 cities, and I want you to pay for that." And they normalize that, and when you've gotten the space, they want you to pay 10-15% upfront.
Yeah, they've got you in the space. Now,
I want to have a bite on the rent thing, and I'm happy that you mentioned a little bit on regulation. The people argue that the conversation is on implementation of what the law says in rent, because subsection 25, subsection 5 of the Rent Act says that you should not charge more than 6 months in terms of rent. But for us within the legal space, the question we often ask is, what was the purpose of that section? We need to understand the intentions of the framers. Is it that they wanted to protect individuals who were seeking places to rent for whatever purposes they were looking for? Or it was preventing landlords from arbitrarily, taking advantage of people? Because if you engage a number of landlords, you'd understand that the reason they would want to take more than a year or two, of course, it makes business sense. The place must be stabilized. The whole project must be stabilized. Somebody takes 6 months, they end it, they go. Another person comes to take 6 months. For them, it is not viable, right? But the person who's also seeking the rent is also not having that much capital to be able to say, okay, I'm now starting business. I just even got my certificate, and I'm supposed to pay 2,000 cedis for 2 years, right? So if the person pays per law more than 6 months without a landlord demand, then it's not a crime. But if it is working, another landlord does not see a reason why they should not take it. And because you don't control the properties, you really cannot just go and say that, hey, go and take 6 months. Okay, I won't give it out again.
Yeah.
And what do you do in the
Demand
next
and
day?
supply.
So I honestly think that we must have a very good conversation that encompasses everybody's interest at hand, so we understand. And then it boils down to the actual reason that if the economy itself is not good, everybody would want to find a way of seeking, some relief from one way or the other. So the issue of rent and location is a big deal. It's a big deal, and I don't think that the laws are really finding a solution for it as it stands, because even 6 months is still a lot of money.
Still a lot of money, yeah.
Still a lot of money.
There's something Isaac touched on that. In Ghana, when you're doing business, people want to see you, they want to know where your office is and all that. I think that should have even preceded this discussion. Is our culture also aiding or hindering doing business in Ghana?
Culture plays a role. The last conversation we had the other time, I was talking about how instinctually we don't promote what I guess people call youth entrepreneurship. And I was making precedence to my friend who went to Silicon Valley for a couple of months. And one of the conversations we had after his return was youth entrepreneurship or youth attachment to something that we would ordinarily, I guess, will be a congress of, older folks, right? So we attach youth to some subsection of it, and we bring some young people away from the main discussion to have their own satellite conversation, and then feed insights from that into the bigger conversation. So by just the framework of how we integrate youth into our conversations at large, we just make them an afterthought, right? And that is problematic. When you go abroad, there's nothing like youth entrepreneurship, especially in Silicon Valley culture, to be proper. the 21-year-old founder is no different from the 48-year-old, and they are not necessarily youth, for example, so that they deserve some sort of special treatment. In our context, it's different. And obviously, in our context, for example, I would want young people who are starting business to have some rebates. But if it was working in a way where there is an acceptance of the general populace, no matter your age, obviously you have to be 18 before you can do any of these legal processes. But once you are 18, you come up with a viable idea, you are well capitalized. There should not be a hindrance if you have a solid grasp of the subject matter with which you are making a proposition of selling. But here, people will look at you and say, oh, now Kwarabe and Krana, you know, so we give a lot of credence to age. And so, for example, people are forced to put elder people on their boards to make up for that. People are forced to go through introductions, and it just creates a pattern of bureaucracy, right? Because you can't just go anywhere and you want to talk. Like, I'll give you an example. Again, another practical example. Hopefully, I'm not calling anybody out.
Hopefully.
This week, we're having a 3i summit.
I hear you spoke at a 3i summit.
Yes, and I think it's one of the best conferences we've had in Ghana in a while, at least in the business and technology space. Very well organized. But as a speaker, when I went to collect my tag, I had about 5 people asking me, are you collecting for someone?
Oh, wow.
Yes. Are you collecting for someone? Are you a volunteer? You know.
You didn't look like a chief executive and a speaker. Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't look like a combination of a chief executive
and then a speaker.
Because
without a beard,
you know,
I thought a beard would have solved that.
Probably maybe a terrorist or something.
Because there are VIPs, there are speakers, and most of these speakers are, you know, understandably governors of institutions, etc. But there were startups there were companies that were doing well there, right? And so people expect older people in some positions, and when they are not that, they do not want to give them audience. And in fact, it's unfortunate, but they delay you intentionally because they sort of feel like, what is this person doing here? And we should really change that. But I think that this is a larger conversation that can continue. I'm just bringing light to that particular age variation and disparity that, and the assumptions that we make of people based on their outlook, their age. So age obviously is a disposition of outlook. So for example, the type of car you drive, it also gives you an access in. So I'll be honest with you, a lot of people have borrowed a lot of money to buy expensive cars that they cannot afford just to have an outlook when they are going to have business conversations. Because my friend will tell you that he is a constructor. He was having this business arrangement that was delaying. One time, he had to go for a meeting, pick his mother's BMW instead of his because his had a problem. And he went. Eventually, when he went, the guy said, "Hey, Charlie, like this is the car you drive. Oh, if we make you come do the thing fast, right?" The assumption of the car you drive, which has no intrinsic.
Yes.
It has no intrinsic value on the execution, unfortunately, gives a perception of execution. And that is the way we do business in that.
Bishop, you had something to say?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have been a victim of this age, concerns.
Without a beard still.
I have said it, in fact.
Maybe people should start growing
I just got beard.
I am growing mine.
Yeah, let the grey come. Maybe the grey will help.
I mean, anytime you talk about beard, I look at my brother Kingsley because he may probably just be regarded as a security guard or something. But it is a big deal that is deeply ingrained in our socialization right from birth. The African environment expects you to, I don't want to use the word take your time. They literally expect you to keep the notion that, wait, people are ahead of you, let them finish before you come. And then they question you when you are a little bit of age and you have nothing doing that. What did you do with your time when you were young? It's a big issue. But beyond the age disparity that he's talked about, there's one other issue, which I think I have an article on, I wrote on apathy and the absence of communal harmony within the Ghanaian environment. That issue of, oh, this one is from one of our own, it will not be good. that, the quality may not, even if the quality is superb, because it is from another person who is a Ghanaian, there's a problem. Because I've lived in Namasama since 2009, December 26th, up till now, and then I lived with people that I grew up with, were playing football with and all of that, some of whom were in senior high schools, were in university at the time. And all of a sudden, grace abounds, and then you open a shop. And then you're expecting that, the community drive will be like, oh, this guy is the person we grew up with. Let's patronize him. And it changes that, oh, you were here with you right now. You've opened the shop. They would rather go further distances to go and get, services there when they could literally get it from you. And they also expect that by reason of growing up with you or that familiarity, when they come, beyond the services that should be special, the cost should somehow be lower than whatever the market.
On a guy.
Yeah, my own paddy, why, that narrative. So that, this harmony is there. I'm particular about it because, when you read sociology, you hear the thoughts of Herbert Spencer on society being a living organism and every other aspect. When your stomach is aching, you touch your tummy. Is your hand a painkiller or a stomach ache? No. But you feel that, that when I do something like this and I lay down, at least mentally, it works on you. That's how society is. Every other aspect of it needs to be that interconnected. So if the market is there, but there's apathy, then obviously we're not thriving. And it's a big issue.
It is.
Because there are local rice, production in the country that are very good. But everybody wants to get the ones that have been imported. No matter how much marketing you do on the local one, that apathy is there. It's like we're born with it that, hey, it's from your brother, don't take it. I don't know where it comes from, but it's a big deal. On a more serious note, it's a big deal. And he'll be able to tell you, in fact, Kingsley will be able to tell, if somebody comes from outside rather than as an investment professional, the whole euphoria, the reception will be totally different from how they may take it. In fact, some of them may even have gone to school with Kingsley, maybe in class with him. I'm sure he's already experiencing it. That the people who ask for your services will not be people that know you. And I've seen you grow actually and trust the process. They will be the ones to question how did you just come? How did you plummet? Where?
So the culture is a challenge.
Yes, it's a big challenge.
But if I may, with the culture bit, and I'll first start with Isaac's point, there's a bit around, I get the angle around people sometimes expecting older folks to be leading organizations compared to younger folks. I think here there's a twist to that element. There is value in domain expertise. Yeah. There's value in having experience. There are some products that generally people would want experienced people to be able to lead it. And there are some products that are more welcoming regardless of your experience or whatever. If you want to launch a social app, or that I don't need to be a 40-year-old, 50-year-old to launch. If I want to launch...
Are you only saying that based on the precedent of Mark Zuckerberg and a few folks doing that? Because pre-them, there were not actually a lot of young people doing that.
But even with Mark Zuckerberg, you'd realize that he brought on board Sheryl Sandberg. Now, Sheryl Sandberg was an experienced person at Google.
Yes.
And he brought her on board to be the 2IC. So my point is that sometimes when you do, I think... There's the obvious part around making the obvious case that the society as a whole does not support people. But when sometimes you're building technical products and you realize that, and I think you just adapt. And the adaptation here could be you bringing somebody on your board with that expertise, and that could probably lead some conversations when it matters most. Or it could be you having a 2IC that balances that whole aspect. Because it is what it is. There are some products that you will find people just wanting that form of credibility before they can trust you.
But that's where Isaac has a problem.
Yeah, but
that's
actually
age shouldn't be an issue at all.
My point
you could have a board of 80-year-olds, and if they are performing,
no. My point is no. Some products you need experience. Now, experience then becomes a function of age, because.
Which fundamentally is a problem, because even if you look at our constitution, you're expected to be 40 plus before you can run for presidency. And that's the problem I have, because experience is the amount of things that you have acquired for doing something consistently, and not how old you are. Because somebody can be 40 years and may not have experienced a number of things. And somebody can be 20 years, and from age 19 to 20, that 1 year, may have gone through a series of something. So when we calculate experience based on the function of age, we lose out on a number of things. It should be how long the person has done the thing, what are the metrics, what are the key indicators we are looking at. Because if it's about tech, or even it's about investment, if you have coached, let's say, 3 unicorns by age 25, I think you are best fit to advise me on anything that I should take, than saying that I should go for somebody who is 30 years, who has also coached 3 unicorns. That's the disparity we are having, where the experience is calculated by age and not by, because admittedly, if somebody is 70 and a person says, hey, vote for me, I want to be president, I'll sit back a little bit. 17, really, Ghana. Do you understand the landscape well? I would have, and these are genuinely, socialized instincts that will come, because that's how I've also been socialized.
Okay.
But then again, I must sit back and then critically examine the whole environment and say that, okay, this person, move the age away. What really is the person bringing on board? What has he acquired? What has he learned over the years? What does he know in terms of that field? Because I've worked with Isaac for a number of years. And if somebody says that Isaac is not old, so don't work with them, it's a big problem for me, because I know Isaac can deliver. Same with Kingsley. Maybe you're not aware, but we're brothers on this.
I mean, that's an interesting conversation we could expand. Putting the culture bit aside, let's look at the big one, the elephant in the room, finance. Because I'm not saying you go boss, so let's start. Let's start from the finance guy. Let's start from Kingsley. Kingsley, assessing finance as a business in Ghana, 0 to 10, as always. Give the mark before you make your.
Sub 5.
I mean, okay. I think it should be more particular with the subs. Is it 2 or a 2?
Is it a 1 or a 2? A sub 5 can be a 4.
I want to know where his 5 is coming from.
Okay, no, sub 5. So I'll say maybe a 3. A 3. Like basically saying it's challenging. It's challenging. It's challenging to get capital when you're trying to start a business or you're trying to scale a business. Yeah. So there's the 2 parts. There's one, the challenge with getting the capital to start a business, and there's the challenge with scaling. So I'll start with the first one, starting the business. For most businesses in Ghana, our traditional, our go-to player when it comes to finances is the banks. Yeah. Because we've not developed other areas of potential financiers. So the obvious person when somebody is thinking about starting a business is a bank. Now you go to banks, and banks likely, the most obvious instrument that they use is loan. Now for a startup, one, you're now starting, your cash flows are not guaranteed. You don't know, it's an idea you're trying, whether you're trying to even run a factory, set up a factory, whatever, a tech idea, you don't have stable cash flows here. You don't even have guaranteed cash flows. You don't have predictable cash flow. The banks are looking out for this particular indicator. So then, eventually, you are basically not a fit for them. Even when you are a fit for them, then they see you as somebody with a very, who is high risk. So your risk premium, which tends to be a function of what your borrowing cost is going to be, because normally when they pick the Ghana reference rates and how high it can go above the Ghana reference rate, it's a reflection of the premium on the risks they are placing on you. Because that person does not have anything to show, there isn't any guaranteed cash flow, there isn't that obvious traction, you'd realize that you'll be priced at a very high rate, 40%, 50%. You can't start a business right at that particular stage. Now you go to the equity side, and then with our venture space, is gradually building up. But again, venture is sometimes more tilted towards tech companies. So for the normal brick and mortar traditional companies, then you realize that what then becomes your obvious choice. Then you have to rely on some few angels, some friends within your network, or if your family is rich, you can be rich. But again, these are not things that the average Ghanaian might be blessed with. So for most people, starting a business is very difficult. Now, it's a bit more painful when you've even started and you want to scale. Because maybe starting, I would say that, everybody can start a business, so I don't care if you are suffering, suffer. But you started a business, you just want to probably unlock some contracts. Or maybe you've gotten something, you just want to go into new markets. You go back to, let's say, the banks, let me start with the banks, and then you are still faced with a high borrowing cost in the 30s. And again, that is also a function of the broader macroeconomy, because where the rate is, like I said, the Ghana reference rate at the moment is just below 30%. So
Any addition?
Like hardly would you, there are instances where you can probably go below it based on how credible you are as a business and some metrics. But the average, if you are to normalize it, it's only upwards if you are to normalize it than going down. But I said there are exceptions to people get access to it. So now the business who has built, you are going to pay 35%. A year, 35%. What are your profit margins like? How much are you going to turn around to be able to service this loan? So you realize that again, you are not able to start. So you see a lot of promising businesses that die because of lack of capital or the borrowing cost being too high. You see a lot of businesses that do not even die, but they are just stagnant. They are not able to grow. They are not able to expand into more geographies because the obvious financing which they will need isn't there. The equity side is even very difficult because the average Ghanaian understands debt conversation than equity conversation. You know, when it comes to equity, there isn't an obvious payout. It's all about, I feel there's prospects. Let me come on board and in the future, there will be a payday. In the future, there might be a payday. Might, future are not things that people want. They want assured 8%, 10% locked in. So you have people also having that challenge with equity. So I think on the financing front, a lot needs to be done to be able to support businesses. The good thing is that now we are seeing more alternative financiers coming into the market. You see industries like private equity, of which that is my background, and then we sometimes come in to provide other form of alternative financing than what maybe a bank will not be able to do. So on that spectrum, you have private equity, you have private capital. Private capital, some are able to even give very low rates, reasonable rates. But again, there are issues with that one. Some because of these, where they get the money from. Sometimes they price the loan it's a hard currency loan. So it means you're also exposed to FX issues. But then we are seeing such developments. And I think for a business out there, just know that the bank isn't just the only place that you can go to for financing. If the bank is not working, look at it. And I don't know whether we'll have time to exhaust this conversation, but there are a lot of financing options that are available. Each has its own challenges. But if you are a business with established track record and the banks are not coming on board, you can look at how you can talk to a private debt, which is like a PE firm or any form of alternative finances, and see how you can support it. But generally, it's tough getting access to capital in this market.
I mean, I hope that we can continue on this conversation at length, because I totally disagree with him when it comes to the supposed myriad of options that exist.
They're on paper.
Thank you. Right.
But not
the
in reality.
Theoretical myriad of options that exist, because the practicality is that they don't exist. I'll take this conversation from two folds. One is from the average listener listening to us, and I'll do technology. The average listener who may be listening to us now would start the business on the account of doing well in their individual private endeavors, which is probably in their career, right? So we see that if people start having increments in salaries, promotions, etc., they want a place where they can put their monies and make a return. So the options are going to put it in a bank, some investment instruments. We know what's happened in the past few years. Some people have lost their money as a result of those things. And then obviously, people may want to start businesses. So actually, fundamentally, that is where capital comes from for businesses. Capital comes from doing some consulting gigs here and there, right? And getting a foundational seed capital from working a number of years, right? From saving a number of years, etc., and wanting to start a store, for example, with it. There is nobody, and I mean zero, in Ghana who starts such a business with a bank loan. Zero. And I want any bank in Ghana to come and dispute this. There is absolutely zero number of people that will start a pharmacy, a store, a farm with a bank loan. Now, there are a couple of people that are trying to give alternative finance. For example, MasterCard for the past few years has been using Fidelity to disburse a couple of funds. And the requirements mean that it's not a startup capital as pre-seed or seed money to actually start a business. So, I mean, there is zero money coming from any institution, right, that will that is going to people to start businesses, except for grants. And again, the barrier for grants has even become higher.
I think if I be coming, I think zero is a stretch.
So I want just one example.
I'm coming.
When I get one example,
then
we move from zero.
Yes.
I'm coming.
So
are you going to give me one example?
Oh yeah. Zero is a stretch.
So give me one.
I can't mention one for the business. But
You mean a bank?
Yeah, a bank. Oh yeah, a bank. For traditional businesses.
A bank?
Yes.
At what rate? At the 40%
No,
rate?
the rate is different. You said zero. Like the conversation.
The rate.
So someone took a 40% loan to go and start a business.
I'm coming. The conversation is different. The point he made was zero. That is where I'm coming from. The cost of capital is the issue. A second conversation. That was not the main point.
Okay. I still maintain my mind zero. You see, because I do not see in what paradigm that someone comes to take 40% loan to start a business. Only if the person is doing, for example, a mining business, and I know a little bit of that business, that has ridiculously high outcomes. I don't know a single business in Ghana, for example. Give me a business in Ghana that is giving you a margin of 70%. What business in Ghana relatively is giving you a margin of 70%? That is when it starts
so
to
that
make
you can
sense.
afford a 30.
Exactly. That is when it starts to make sense.
But the conversation around interest rate is a fluid conversation. Interest rate is a function of the macro side. Today we are at 40 because of where the exchange rate is.
For the past 4 years, the lowest interest rate in Ghana has been 25%.
Exactly. So I'm trying to say it is a function. So today it is 40%. Doesn't mean it is always 40%. It is not cheap. That is the point. But the point is that there are, for some traditional businesses, where they've had access to some loan facilities from banks to start. That I can say
from day one.
I honestly think.
Okay, so you know why I'm quiet listening to them.
From day one.
I did 10 years in the industry,
Yes.
right? I've sat in banking halls. I've moved all the way to C-suite upstairs. I would say the zero is a stretch, but I'm not countering him. Those who came starting, coming for money to start business, Charlie, somebody made a call. You know that somebody made a call. And it happened.
Yes.
So I'm unable to say zero is this.
Like if
I think the average person, the division that he's looking. I honestly think the two of them are talking about slightly little different things.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it.
The reason
profile. I talk about
reason
the
is that you see, across the world, if I want to take 40% rate to start a business alone, then probably I have enough assets to displace the cost should anything happen.
Exactly.
Normally, those are the conditions.
The collateral must.
The person has something. For example, the news across is that for the Dangote refinery like this was funded with a loan. You understand that? For a number of those businesses, obviously you don't want to use cash flow to go and then be doing it because it has to flow.
Of course.
And then you are done and then you can displace the cost. Fair. But for somebody who is starting at fresh, and when I talk about startup, I want us to look at the startup differently from the way we're looking at that actual startup that we are talking about, like we're all sitting here as young entrepreneurs. Nobody can take 40% or even 25%.
No, for the rate,
that loan, nobody can take it. So maybe on that part, there may be zero. Yeah. Maybe on that stretch,
I always thought businesses that when you're starting a business, the worst thing you'd want to do is to start off with a loan.
Yeah.
So that is an obvious.
That's obvious.
So you know what?
But the point is just that I'm trying to say that for some traditions, there are different ways.
Can Kinsley give us a profile of the company that gets such a loan? That's all I want. And in Ghana, can you give us a profile of such a company? Don't tell us the name of the company or even the industry, right? What is the profile of such a company that gets a loan? Because I have sat, and again, I've not worked in a bank, but I've sat in these banking conversations for more than four months, talking to almost all of the banks and at different levels. And I know for sure that almost nobody will have success at doing that. So maybe that's...
So again, we have to distinguish clearly between types of startups here. So we have like the tech startups. I'm looking at, and we have traditional businesses. Now a traditional business, for a bank giving out a loan, the obvious thing they are looking out for is cash flow. I mentioned that, guaranteed cash flow. What that means is that where the nature of the business, where you're about to start, is something where it can be backed by an asset, assets-backed financing. They sometimes come on board. We also have instances where it is purely a revenue share agreement or a royalty play. It depends on the way it is being structured. There are some insurance where you are starting, because the point is you're an early stage, but maybe you secure the contract and then there are receivables where once you supply the contract, the receivables get paid.
Can I come in here?
I'm coming.
No, let him finish.
I'm coming. That is also early stage. So
Yes.
in that case, a bank could come on board because they know that. Nope. I'm coming. I'm coming. I use a bank could come on board because there is a way that, okay, once that contract is fulfilled with their financing, the receivables is paid. They are able to net off the payment. So we have receivable financing too. So my point is that it depends on the type of business we are talking about. For traditional business with a clear cash flow prospect, some banks might be willing to take the risk. There could be some other elements that may have influenced that, like you said, maybe a phone call, maybe the credibility of the founder, but we're still talking about starting a business. There could be some elements. But when we go to the other angle, then the conversation
so by the way, I want to respond.
Zero is
I want to respond. I still stand by my zero. I want to respond. And in my case, I was not talking about technology business. I was talking about a business model where we, as a technology business, were helping other businesses, in fact.
Okay.
So I was not talking about myself as a technology founder or business. Now, what he's talking about in that receivable finances, every bank in Ghana, and I mean every, will ask for a letter of credit. Every Bank of Ghana will ask for a letter of credit. Or the bank that is coming from outside is going to ask for a letter of credit, which the bank in Ghana would then ask you to come and give a collateral for the letter of credit. And I mean every. He should show me one bank that will do different. And that's it, our end conversation.
Okay, so
every bank in Ghana.
You have a point there, but let me give you an example.
So where is the collateral going to come from?
No, you wait.
You see,
Let me give you an example.
you see,
And he was making a point that wait. But that is one conversation.
No,
and he was making a point that banks in Ghana give loans based on your track record of cash flow. Which bank?
Okay, wait.
Which bank?
Wait. So now let me come in and give you an example.
No. Which bank?
Let me speak.
Because I am telling you for a fact that I understand what he's saying. That is the perceived reality. But what the bank is trying to do is most of the time trying to make sure that they have over collateralized you so that they have almost no risks. That is what this is a reality. Because banks, most banks will tell you 50% of the money in the bank first, right? Or more than that, plus property.
I know the finance question was going to come up with emotions.
So I'm not being emotional. I'm just trying to be. See, this is the theory of what bankers say, and I just want to the reality.
So address me.
You see, no, but
address me. I'm the banker.
Yeah, I wanted to take.
No, the truth is that this is what they say on platforms, right? And it never happens because we go into the conversations with them, and they can start saying different things. Okay, so it never happens.
So let me give you an example of a bank.
See, I know someone.
A bank that will give you zero.
Wait.
Let me.
I'm coming. Let me give you an example, right? Let me give you an example of someone in Ghana. This ties directly into your profile. Okay. That's why I wanted you to make it obvious, right? That's why put a customer profile, etc. I didn't think you did a very good job at that because you are trying to find maneuvers. Let me give you an exact customer profile. This is a construction. This is a contract that has been given to somebody to construct a couple of affordable houses, right? He has off-takers ready. So people who are willing to buy it
and the off-takers have
signed an agreement, right? He has blocks on the field, right? To start a building, he needs money for operations. I'm telling you, up to now, the person doesn't have the financing from any bank in Ghana.
So now let me come. So let me speak as a banker. After 10 years, so I have to defend my people. Let me tell you a time when we'll do zero. Guy walks in and says, I brought some cars to town. They are the ports. I need money to go clear them. I sell them. I give you back your money. Credit officers dispatch to the port. Verifications and everything done. The car is there. The cars are there. The containers, everything sorted out. Credit officers will do their report. Bring it back. Within a week, because the guy doesn't want the mortgage to come in. And within a week, the guy is still his pass. However, The cars be what a cars.
No, that's what I explained. Assets backed financing.
Exactly. But you see, when immediately the car become asset backed, right? Right now, car loans in Ghana, the loans rate applies to a car loan rate. Am I not lying?
Of course.
Exactly. And what's the car loan rate in Ghana right now?
So
that guy.
So I said that guy will be giving the money.
At 35.
That's a different. That's a different conversation.
Yes. It's totally very. It's just tiresome because I remember that I started at like 2000 and you know the journey. 2016 when we started the whole pharmacy thing. In fact, because of lack of finance, it took us from 2016 to 2020.
4 years
before we opened. Now, even before we opened in that December, I had a conversation with the Rural Bank. I don't want to mention their name, but the Rural Bank. And sitting like this with the manager, very fine gentleman that looked like somebody who could give you the money. Look, we had the conversation on the stretch. He understood that it was a startup and said, well, I need to see how much money passes through their account before I can give it to you. I'm not starting. Where is the money going to pass through that account? So, that's why I say that zero, if you look at it in a different angle, is not a stretch.
Right, yeah.
The rarity is overwhelming. And these are the actual patterns that any startup entrepreneur would go through. Like, there's no way that anybody would have that guaranteed cash flow under any circumstances. The people who are running government business themselves don't even have a guaranteed cash flow.
And let's also be honest,
now let's
right?
come back to cases.
Just one point. In the example you gave, just so that I maintain my zero, in the example that you gave, that is operational cost. Cost of clearance is an operational cost. The person had to have cost of some capital to go and buy the cars, ship them. Cost of clearance is where the bank is coming. Where the bank now is saying that because of that cost, we collect the cars. But that is not from
startup.
It's not a startup.
It's not startup. I get you.
There is zero, and I can tell you there is zero.
So
because let me tell you, for the past 6 years, right? I mean, one of the businesses in the business we're still doing right now, eventually want to solve this problem. And so I did my research. I read all the documents. I read all the Bank of Ghana reports as a result of the closure and everything. And this is what has happened to the banks for the past 8 years, I think 7 years. They've not been making money from giving business loans. They do not want to do that. They make money by giving their money to government.
Yeah.
They make their money from government bonds. Up to 75% of them, like the 75% of the money they were making from there. And they were putting their money into highly capitalized infrastructure projects. Not to young businesses and small business. That's never no bank in Ghana does business like that. That is a fact.
Yeah.
Then again,
let's
you look at the alternative.
Let's look for solutions. As an investment professional, what are the solutions? Because he said what you said first was...
So now, not theory, exactly.
Yeah, now let's move from the theory. You said we've not grown the others, and everything we know is bank. And even when you say bank in Ghana, it's actually the universal bank.
Yeah.
Yes.
If the development banks had been grown, it would have been a different conversation. The agri guys would have gone to their agri guys. The industrial guys would have gone to their industrial guys.
I hate when we talk about agri, but you continue.
So the thing is this: we've not grown. What should we do to grow the others so that there will be Women's World Bank for female entrepreneurs? There will be entrepreneurship bank for startups that would clear zero. There will be agri banks that will be. What do we need to do as a nation?
Yeah. So, if I answer that question, I think I have to make this clear. It would be disingenuous for me to say that people don't have financing. I think I made that one very clear.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that bit. Now, I think the conversation around the solution is one thing that we, even in the space, we've been constantly having with those who hold the capital. So, in recent times in the space, we've been having engagement with like pension funds because they hold a bulk of the capital.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to get them to start thinking, to kind of like move from the typical government instruments, the 75% plus exposure that they have, to think about how they can invest in the real economy by backing, let's say, PE firms or other vehicles on the market. So that's one conversation that we need to continuously have. That is, there's that money which is sitting with the pension fund. And elsewhere, pension funds money supports the real economy.
Yep.
In our part of the world, pension funds money, some do not go into that side. You see that overexposure. So I think it's a constant conversation. We are seeing that uptick, but it's still not there yet. Our fund that we currently run, IGVCF, is primarily backed by local pension funds. But we need more of that. We need them to be able to support more of such vehicles, more of such instruments. So that is one bit that we can do, because once that money comes to a capital allocator like us, we will go into the real economy. And all these nuances, we don't think like the bank. So then you are able to you are able to then apply different. So that's like the very first conversation that we need to have. The second one is also trying to make, and here it's more on the macro side, and this is like where the government comes in, making it possible for we to have some stable exchange rate. And I'll tell you this, there's a lot of money that is sitting outside. So years back, and even recently, we've been seeing a lot of financing coming from development finance institutions, the DFIs. Now, for some of them, they are able to provide loan at concessionary rates. Concessionary 3%, 1%, 2%. It might not be a grant because they don't want to make it an obvious grant, but the rate is something that for an average person, they can still be able to pay. So you see an average of around 8%. But let me tell you something right now. 8% years ago was very good. Now, if you go to those same people, the foreign investors, because of the macro, they will not be giving you 12%.
Yep.
So even moving outside Ghana, where first people could go and they could get 7%, 8%, 6%. Now you go out there and you are being forced to pay 10, 12 because your country is defaulted. You the business. So we need to have that conversation around the broader macro, because when we have the broader macro, then we are able to give competition to some of the banks and the local players here in terms of that particular bit. The very third element is we having an element around hedging the foreign rate. So I know businesses that years ago took loans, let me even say at 8% or 7%. But back then, maybe they took a loan of $100,000. I'll make it very simple. 8% means they were paying $8,000 every year. If they took the loan 4 years ago, when exchange was around 6 cities, that's like 6 times 8. So you're looking at what? 48,000. Today, nothing has changed. The same, or the $8,000 today at the current rate of 15 cities. You can do the math. That will not make sense for the business. So the business, nothing has changed. The same money, the same financing years ago was very cheap, but because of the exchange rate play. And so here the solution, one of the solutions could be the banks or any form of institution coming in to hedge forex for these businesses, because there are lots of businesses that are into the importation side. Most people, those who are listening, some are the cars you are talking about, the importation. If there's a way they can hedge the risk, the FX, where maybe it is priced by, they've already factored in the premium, so all the volatility, at least you don't care about it. But we don't have a lot of these things. So this is another thing that we need to do to make the conversation more positive for those in the space. But having said that, there's a role that we also need the businesses to be able to play. You see, fundraising is an exchange of value. You are asking for money. I am also giving you something. Now, for some businesses, and I always tell businesses that when you are starting out, you have to know who you are talking. Pardon me if I make you have to know who you are talking to. A business, you see businesses that have an idea and they are going to the bank. It's a wrong place to go to, because I already mentioned that for banks, they care about predictable cash flow. You are starting out, you have an idea, you are talking to a bank. The bank will not come on board. Then it adds to your growing concern that banks don't support. But for a bank, because they also have to protect depositors' money, they need that predictability. So if you are starting a business and there is a way, and that is why we need to have that broader conversation around how we build the overall ecosystem. But there is a way where you could use your own small capital. You could make all friends, family, or grant, apply as many as you can. Like something to just get you started, to have some traction, which can make you attractive. Do it. If the business is something that you don't have a proven model, don't go talking to debt financiers. You are only going to have debt when you still don't have your proven model. If you are already an established business and you don't have systems in place, now when it comes to financing, all these things form a core part of the financing. You're looking at the systems, you are looking at the structures you have in place. and we are looking at your books. So maybe your books, you see some businesses, they're like, oh, I'm doing so well. I'm doing so well. It's not what the language that we want to see. You ask them for financial statement, they don't have. What does that mean? That increases your risk premium because the banks feel like, oh, maybe whatever you're giving me is a lie. It's not been audited, all of those things. So businesses needs to keep proper records. And those businesses that are also keeping proper records, they need to have the right system. Like you are a production company, you are a factory. Put in the process that shows how you go through your entire value chain from production to export. It makes it easier for the financier to understand your business. The challenge, again, we are seeing with the banks and other places that when they don't understand the business, they assume the worst form of risk and then they place it on you. So make that conversation easier to at least reduce it. So proper records, have proven business model, have the right systems, and then when your team, you have to add some people just to take some box, kind of like if possible, do it. But then if you are starting out and it's just an idea, don't go to the bank looking for a loan. That is not.
And if you meet all of these, you still might not.
Yeah, and if you that's
It's a 9:45, and normally around this time I would have been talking to Isoko, but this in conversation is getting a lot more interesting. This is what we're going to do. We would have to get these three gentlemen to commit to come in next week as well, so that we continue. I know they are very busy, but they must commit on air so that we will hold them to their word, because they are big men. They're very busy. This one talking at 3 and all that. However, before we go, there are a number of issues that are very critical that we need to talk about. And when we do that, we'll dovetail into the 9:55 conversation, so that coming up at 10, you all know, it's NYA The Brand coming your way with the brighter side from 10 to 1 p.m. Gentlemen, taxation. The guy who struggled through the culture, the registration, struggled through the finance bit, started his business. Yesterday, we had someone from the Ghana Hotels Association, and he said, listen, they've given up on the volumes of the taxes. Now, all they are begging for is put all together.
Exactly.
Get a name, call it. Put all that tall list, give it one name. And even that one, they said they've struggled through Parliament. Guys, taxation.
So if you're doing a traditional business in Ghana, right, I think the problem with taxes is how the value chain, right, the value chain, the supply chain, the taxes that are all incrementally in each side. So because, for example, if you have registered your business in Ghana and you are selling cars, your car itself, clearance, you have to pay all the ports duties, which have now obviously become insurmountable for most people. Then your business pays separately tax for the sale of the cars afterwards. Do you get my point? If you are a restaurant, obviously if you are clearing, for example, and unfortunately some of the restaurants have to get tomatoes from Burkina, clear that. They won't say that because you're a restaurant and you are going to pay taxes for that. Maybe you get some rebate for just the clearance. So you see that you pay taxes across so many value chains that at the end, if you put that together, the government is just sucking up all your money, unfortunately. So we need to be very, very creative and look at ways where we can make it easier so that people don't pay recurrent, repetitive tax across the value chain of their business, because that is what people are really complaining about. Now, for the young people who are in the business, already government has stipulated some tax rebates through programs like I said, the national
NEIP.
Yeah, let's make those things work. Yeah. Because it's unfortunate that I know personally people who have gone through NEIP. You're supposed to pay 500 cedis, fill a form. But that's the other day I said, and when I said that, it was a form of accountability, right? That we encourage these institutions to come on radio, to come and speak to us about the process. Maybe we are doing something wrong, we accept liability and do better. But also tell us that across the year of operation, year over year, how many businesses have actually benefited from these things? What is the tax rebate that they have given in total? So that it motivates people to want to cheerfully come and show them their businesses to do that. Because if they don't do that, what people would obviously do is to refuse to register their businesses and operate in the dark. And then governments will continually have to find ways so that the people who are registered are the people who are overtaxed. Yeah. That is the problem. You know, I don't want to make it a tech or anything conversation. The young people who are starting businesses right in this country have no money to start businesses. If they will get money from their daily works that they do, from some beneficiary, some benefactor, especially because of the difficulty of doing business, because of the unpredictability, because of the time it will take for the business to mature. What we are asking for is to get a period, what would you say, a moratorium, right? Let's get a moratorium to operate the business for 5 years, for 3 years. And then from there, we will come and see the business, how it is doing. Because we know that if you are starting a business in Ghana, let's be practical. You know, I like to practical things. If you are starting a business in Ghana, one of the mistakes that you can make is to register your business first, right away. Because if you don't have your systems in place and you register your business first,
why did you tend to look at him?
No, because in day one,
that's a countercultural statement.
Yes,
but he has a reason.
I have a reason. From day one, the assumption of the authority is that you're operating. Wrong assumption. Because if you want to do the right thing, when you have your idea set up together, once you are starting to set the office, you start to get
a registration. Yeah.
But it will take you about 6 months, maybe even a year before you start operating. You know that, unfortunately, the authority thinks you've been operating from day one. That's not how it works. So these understanding mishaps create a certain culture, and then they expect you to have operated for 1 year. Most people in that time will be setting up their business. And so, in fact, because of some experiences that I know, from day one operation year, you register your business. Just so that it buys you the time that you will need to do that. But that is not how it's supposed to do, but because of the realities on the ground.
Yeah. Interesting.
Can I? Okay.
Yes, taxation.
Let's go.
The conversation on taxes is honestly very sensitive. I want to use the word sensitive because if you look at it from the point of government, they'll tell you that, oh, they are not even earning much and getting a lot from the people. The tax net.
Widening the tax net.
Widen the tax net. But I think over the years, they've been doing the wrong thing in terms of widening the tax net, because double taxation is not a way to widen the tax net.
It's deepening it.
Yes.
That's deepening the net instead of widening it.
Because unlike many other places, we pay taxes on accrual basis, not like the calendar years and all of those that. So if I have to pay taxes on imported drugs that are, you know, the wholesalers and the distributors have already added to the cost of the drugs. When I come back to the shop, you tax me again on the ones that I sell. Then as a startup person, that's you're conditioning me to fail, because drugs are expensive. When I say it, I open my eyes so that people see the gravity of what I'm talking about. And because I'm in the health space, it's very critical, because if people are not able to get the basics that will sustain them to even boost the economy, then there's a problem. I don't know how we look at it, but these are all the most important aspects of for the economy to thrive. People need to be in good health to be able to run the economy. The very people who are supposed to be in good health must pay twice on drugs. Before, a blood tonic is literally a proper blood tonic. I'm not talking about the ones that the Biko and Co. I'm talking about, you know, the ones that people take as Boddington, you know. I'm talking about proper blood tonic ranges from 1,000 cedis plus. If you buy blood tonic, you will know. Imagine that you earn 1,500 every month, and you need blood tonic, which is 1,000 cedis. If you drink that blood tonic, what will your wife drink? And that of your children. And
let's also contextualize that most Ghanaians would not earn that net.
They would not even earn it in the first place. So, and you have to pay. So right now I'm running on plant. I'm paying double taxes, and I'm paying an increased fuel cost. I should be failing by now. It's only God's grace.
Yeah.
I'm being totally honest, because we run 24/7. That's a model that we began and was quite successful, because communities don't sleep. You know, they run that way. So somebody may be awake at the time that, and you know, people get drugs from 6 p.m. to morning 5. You have higher sales than during the day. Because during the day, people are going to work and people are doing their stuff. So rarely would you find people walking. You may get like 50 walk-ins. But from 6 p.m., people have returned. They may have taken in something. They have stomach upsets and all of that. So people will come, they are tired. Within that time, the business still needs to be in condition. So that way, so if you're buying fuel from morning to the next morning, and you're paying double taxes. That's a big problem. So I honestly agree that we must find a way, for me particularly, to widen the, you know, we are not robbing Peter to pay Paul. We are robbing Peter, we are robbing Paul. There's no paying of anybody here. Because I honestly don't see how much my 25% is even doing in the economy. That's the point. Because I should feel, and when they say that, oh, you are paying to him, but somebody has dodged it. I should not bear the brunt of somebody's evasion. We must find a way and target it. Because we are targeting literally everybody. It looks like, unless we don't identify that you are doing something small, we have to come after you. And that's a big deal. Because if, no, on a more serious note, and that is why a number of people will evade and keep evading. Because if I register, you track me. But if I can manage to operate, you know, that closely without you paying attention to me, then it's a big issue. I do a little bit of agric as well. And I can tell you that a number of all these tax exemptions they talk about, you don't get them. Because you see, if you are giving me a rebate of 5 years to run agric, and the products I'm going to use to do the farming, the products that I'm going to buy, the cost and everything is still on that same product, then where is the rebate? There's no rebate because the cost of pesticide, insecticides and all of that have been inflated. And in Ghana, that thing that the warehouse has taken goods, tomorrow inflation has happened, so they'll sell at the old price. It doesn't work. It does never work anywhere. I bought insecticides the day before. We went to the farm. The calculation by the farm manager did not meet, so we had to go buy a different pack. I went there. It was twice the day before. So if you've given me a rebate, where is the sense in the rebate here? Because I still have to pay overwhelmingly to be able to do something small. And for a land like a 50-acre, you should not arguably spend more than 20,000 even on you'd even reach that if you are doing a double plowing. But if the land itself is in a good shape, you do just a single plow. You should not go more than 15,000. But because of insecticides that you have to use on the whole stretch of land, you can buy just insecticides close to about 6,000 cedis. It's no joke. You can buy and buy and buy. And I'm not even talking about fertilizer because some way, somehow, somebody controls fertilizer in the country. Somebody has a hand on that fertilizer.
Some cartel?
I'm being honest with you. Last year, it was in the news that fertilizer that had been put was supposed to be given to the farmers. Somebody had rebranded it. And it was going outside the country. You don't even get it. Go to the restaurant now and see. Anytime I step out, I get angry. I pay COVID levy, NHIL levy. There's another, I should have bought one of the receipts in the car. You have about 5 of them. So you can buy something for just 100 cedis. It'll come back and it's 220. Where is the COVID levy? What exactly is it doing now? These are questions we must ask. What is it doing? NHI, what is it doing? I'm honestly exhausted, but like I said, I'm supposed to feel, but God's grace.
The grace has kept the business. 2 minutes to 11. However, to 10, sorry. However, this is what is happening. The producer has given us 15 minutes to go. So the brighter side will come at 10:20. And we're doing up to 10:15. Mr. Alex Mensah, thank you very much. Because the conversation is going very well. And there are so many questions that I needed to ask that I couldn't even touch on. Human resource is my next one. So the guy struggled. He's survived. Grace of God has brought him. He's surviving the tax challenges and all that. Then he has human beings to deal with as well. The average Ghanaian worker. No, shaking your head is not caught on radio, so the listeners won't get shaking of your head. We'll come to you.
Inshallah.
The average Ghanaian worker.
So human resource, right, is a problem globally. So I'm not going to say Ghanaians are lazy or anything like that. You have to find a way. I think that I will put the burden on recruitment on founders and business owners, because certainly there are going to be some bad nuts in the collective. And so you're going to find a lot of people who are going to come in and not do their work very well. So I think that if you're a founder, it's a problem. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty. I'm going to talk to founders, business owners, and tell them that they should have a higher iron hand when it comes to recruitment. They should want to recruit and make sure that they set targets. In my experience, when you recruit somebody, you want to set a very high bar for them in their first or so months. And I think we have to be inventive around recruitment. And I know there are laws there that protect, obviously, employees. But if you can find a way, for example, to put people on contractual agreements for 1 to 2 months and track their performance before it eventually becomes an official employment, I have found that it becomes very well, so that you can see, because there is a theory around employment that people's performance rarely over the time increase, right? It tends to plateau. When people start going, they have a, so you want to start the employee on a very high note of efficiency, just like have a very high standard. So if you are rating the person, you want the person to be getting an 8 or a 10 consistently over the 1 to 2, 3 months, right? And then when they make the cut, you say, fine, let's have a proper conversation around a full-time employment. Because if you don't do that, you find that you lock yourself in agreements. Obviously, there are, what's the term? When you are given a period before
probation.
Yeah, there are probationary periods that you can give, right? There are probationary periods that you can give, but if you don't take care and you lock yourself into long-term contracts, you might. And for example, if you want to find financing, this will come into the light that you hire somebody 2 months, you sack the person. So what is happening in the business here? So you want to think about it. But I think eventually it is on the founder. It's part of the culture of the organization you create. It's part of the institution that you build, the system that you build, the onboarding process, for example. Onboarding is, so I don't even know if in smaller businesses, that's a culture that if somebody's coming to the business, you have to pass them through what the business is, what are the processes from, the things that Kingsley said when you need eventually for investment, right? You have to create a framework of your operations so that you can tell people that, oh, this is how the business operates. We get goods from here, we get this from here, we get this here. So if there's a problem here, we go here. If there's a problem, we go here. So all of those troubleshooting as part of the onboarding process so that people understand their business, and from day one, they can start to push through, because you have to also give them a leverage period for them to learn the trade, because no matter your experience, you have to learn the nuance of the business. So proper onboarding, very good for them. Finding inventive ways of making sure that you are not locking yourself into long-term agreements, and thinking about ways where you can increase the threshold of performance, especially in the first period of month, so that you can maintain high accountability, is a way that you can reduce your churn when it comes to your employment. Because when you eventually find the good one, I mean, it changes the business. Especially for small teams, right? Everybody that comes in should be a force multiplier. You should be thinking that, okay, we were doing, say, 100%. If one person comes to, you really should find a way that that person is going to lead a business to 200%. Because you find that in most businesses, at a certain level, everybody that comes in actually creates to a chain of bureaucracy that reduces effective production performance. And that is ways that you can think about it. Maybe some people can share lights around the individual nuances of the challenges, but I want to give people practical ways to resolve it there, because whether you like it or not, you're going to find a lot of difficulties there. So you need to really think about your hiring process very well. Like, what are you optimizing for in hiring? How are you contextualizing culture against performance? Is this person going to be a cultural fit, even though they are highly efficient in their trade technically? And if you combine both things and you hire well and you take some of these pathways, I think that you would eventually find that you can quickly weed out the bad nuts, and then you can maintain people that really can multiply efficiency in the business.
Well put. I mean, for what I know, if it's a B team in Ghana, we would not mind bringing a C player. And a number of C players, then all of a sudden the B team starts dropping. Rather than look for A players that would at least move the B team to a B plus, because it says, well, let's bring somebody who knows somebody, and then before you realize, the performance starts dropping. So you're absolutely right. What has been your experience, Worship?
I honestly think that, the whole theoretical aspect of hiring people is very sweet when you read it and then
In HR books and all that.
yeah, like it's good when you see it. You actually think it's going to go that parting. I set the structures. I let them know what the vision is. These are the troubleshooting areas. These are the angles, the whole levels of hierarchies, and everybody. This organizational structure follow. Wow.
The follow is where the problem is.
You come to understand that human beings are the most difficult people to deal with. Everybody has a reason for joining a business. For me, I often want to understand the person's motivation for coming to the business. And before I even talk about the motivation, I look at it from this angle that money is a complementary factor for the hiring process. The startup entrepreneur who has some reserve capital is able to do a proper hiring process and handle a number of things. Because if you do not have much, you settle for what you get. It's a thing that many people forget. Because this is the thing. You obviously know that you need very qualified people to do the job. The very qualified people who are the A team, you don't have the capital to hire them. So you go for, in fact, we rarely even go for B. We probably settle within a C and a D. You find one person within a C who has potential to be in a B. And the person may try. All the others stay in a C. It means a lot of the job is on you, than the lead person, to do quite a number of the job. And all entrepreneurs in the world will tell you that within the very first few years, you are the hirer, you are the secretary, you tend to do a number of them because you don't have the capital to do that. So I always don't want us to move capital from the impact it has on hiring.
Definitely.
I've had the opportunity to hire both literates and illiterates. And you realize that the book changes nobody. It has very little.
I think you should repeat that.
The book changes nobody, literate or illiterate. If the person's motivation has very little to do with seeing your business grow, it doesn't matter what certificates the person has. People in Ghana join businesses because they are looking for relief. They are not joining because they love the vision actually of the business and they think this can change the Ghanaian system. Rarely do you find people that motivated that Isaac's business, Melo, if I look at it from the onset, is something that can disrupt the whole Ghanaian fintech environment. And so I want to join. No. I'm joining because
I need a salary.
There's something, so people enter the business and they realize that even the conditions of living itself beyond the business is killing them, and then it shakes them apart, and their commitment begins to I'm saying that because I think for some time, that was around 2 years ago, there was a pharmacist that we had employed. When the person came, the enthusiasm was something you would not say no to. And this is an academic. So you think that from that perspective, the person would understand that health is key. The person enters into the job, goes for lunch, 12, comes back 3, 2. What happened between 12 and 2, only the Lord knows. If the person was the one who went to pound the fufu before the fufu got ready, you can never tell. But from 12 to 2, the person now comes back. And the person realizes that he is A, there's C there, sits back and says, C, do the job. Because within a pharmacy, the pharmacist is the most primary person. All the MCAs and the dispensary technicians are supporting, human resource. But you come back to see the person that the pharmacist themselves is seated when somebody enters, and it's the MCAs that are moving around asking, please, what do you want? Please, what do you want? And it doesn't work that way. On the farm, the farm manager knows clearly that you don't need this amount of seeds and fertilizers and all of that to do the job. That's exactly what he'll tell you. The mason knows that you don't need this number of cement, wood, ceiling, for whatever you have to do. That's exactly what he'll tell you. So the cultural aspect of workers is a thing that
he is rich to have set up the business. Let's siphon from him.
That's it.
It is basic, it's from the fundamentals. And so when I see people who have travailed to the top in doing business, I have a different level of respect I give to them, even beyond that of a president of the country. Because to have dealt with all of that trajectory and to reach that pinnacle is a different story altogether. And I'm hoping that one day they'll be able to tell us the actual truth. I mean, not the one CD I started with and all of that. But, just so that people understand the nitty-gritty, what really is on the ground. Because as far as anything else, I would very much be interested in getting somebody that is not familiar with me from somewhere externally to come and work for me than somebody I know within my closet or somebody within a Ghanaian environment. It is very difficult to not be present as a Ghanaian entrepreneur in your office, in the business place, and expect that everything will go on well. People don't even respect camera anymore. Catch me, I'm doing it. Oh, I know, listen, maybe my experiences are different, but I'm being very practical because last year I did tomato. Unfortunately, because of work and many other things, I couldn't go. I was just told that, oh, this is what we got from the tomato farm. And then, funny enough, I decided that this year I wouldn't do tomato. Let me stay back with the maize. And the guy tells me, oh, if we do tomato, even on this small land, we'll get this much. Oh. But the land we used last year was bigger than the one you are asking us to use. If this very small one can give us more than that, what happened
last year?
Last year, I mean, I understand the factors of agri. You rarely control the process of production. I get that whole part. But the analysis the guy was doing, the interesting, don't worry, let's do it. It's as though to this year's tomato year, last year was not. No, you understand the point? So, really, I always want to understand people's motivation. And I really want to know what the Westerners do differently that we don't know. Because Jeff left his company, Bezos as the CEO, and the person who assumed had been working with him for about 15 years. How did they find those people? That somebody sticks with you, understands the journey. The person is not concerned about even being a CEO. The person is literally concerned about Ebonzo being a global company. How? Where did they find them, Kingsley? I want one.
Which comes to my business.
And I'll be and I'm not saying this to mean that the workers that, you know, are currently working at the pharmacy and all of that are bad. They are doing quite tremendous job, I must say. In fact, if I don't say it here, I'm sure by the time I'll go back, there's looting.
They frown and
there's looting. They are doing quite a good job, but I'm just letting entrepreneurs know from the onset that, one, you are not conditioned to even succeed. You don't have the money to even hire the qualified people. Yeah. Put it aside. Two, the people that you've hired are not joining because they like the vision. They are joining because they are looking for a relief. I can tell you that people who stay in a business for 15 years in this country, 20 years, if they had alternatives, they would not be there.
People who stay in the business.
Yes. It's not that they love the bank. If they had alternatives, they would have left.
I left banking. What are you trying to say? Anyway, quick fire ones. What's the biggest problem facing doing business in Ghana? Quick fire. We have just 2 minutes to go. Biggest problem, one, just one, that the president or whoever should handle. Biggest single one of all the challenges. We've not exhausted all of them.
I think because I work in tech, I would just say that we need to rethink the way the tech ecosystem operates, and we need to find foundational models that can equip people to build technology business, and I think that mandate is on institutions, at the university especially, to build programs where we are actually building, we're collaborating with institutions, especially the private sector, to co-create solutions for them. Because the way doing technology works in Ghana, it is very, very expensive, especially if you're going to the fintech route. But if we can build scalable models through software as a service platforms that we can build for a lot of industries that need things, we can quickly validate them. We can give experience to those people. We can give them grants, right, for example, to start those businesses. And when they come out of school, based on experience that they had, based on cash flow that they have in their businesses, based on collaborations, they can then use that to go out and seek for venture. That doesn't exist. And that is what, if you are doing an incubator, etc. in Ghana, you should be doing. And I can say that almost no one does that. That is the pathway.
Interesting. Kingsley, biggest problem facing doing business in Ghana?
I know I speak for lots of Ghanaians when I say capital. That's
capital.
Because most of, not like everything, but most of the issues that we've discussed so far,
money could have solved them.
Yep. HR, taxation, money could have solved. So I think for me, that is, if there's one place that the government should stimulate, then it should be the financing economy. Starting with how easy it is to have access to banking facilities and how easy it is to the turnaround time, even that whole process, the collateral requirement, making it flexible for the person who doesn't have 50% cash collateral to still be able to go for the. In fact, some even normal collateral, 120% collateral coverage is even the norm sometimes. So how we can stimulate that particular financing stream. The second part is also how we can bring more of the foreign financiers to come into our market. Our market, for those who are doing the startups, we are lacking early stage financiers. Majority of the people in our system are looking at businesses that are already scaling, the growth companies. But what about the startups? What about the person that has the early stage? The American economy rewards bold ideas and bold vision. Our economy does not do that. Yes. So you have an idea, you just have no way to get it down. If we can make it create that environment where VCs will come down. Look at Nigeria. You see a lot of VCs participating in that market. What is our market here? That will help at least my friend here in the tech ecosystem to be able to deal with some of the issues. So getting on the DFIs, bringing them, making it attractive. We see MasterCard pushing a lot of money into that, but we need more of them beyond just MasterCard. So I think a way to just create that friendly financing environment will go a long way to help businesses.
Bishop, you have the last word. The single biggest challenge that you think should be solved.
I mean, I need to tell the president, please keep my lights on. It's the first thing.
Power!
I need the power because running 24/7 on plant is deadly. Very deadly. I need the lights on. I thank you for the camera. I need the lights on. It's very, very key for me. And I think that I talk about power because everything within my business landscape lives on power. The drugs need to be in a very good condition. And, we also need that to keep running. But beyond just that aspect of it, finance is very key for me. Because if there's enough to rely on, business entrepreneurs would find the freedom to fail and keep moving. Because once you don't know what you can rely on, now as it stands now, you are running a risky trade. And if it goes down, you're dead. Outside, people know that there's something else that they can hold on to, they can clutch on if anything happens. So when I say freedom, I don't mean that people should go about failing. All I mean, that expression essentially means that people would journey on the bit of entrepreneurship, knowing that should they meet any lapses, there's a way of a bounce back. And that really is the point. And when I say that, I mean, we should stop politicization of aid. I've said this thing a number of times. Last year, I said it on the APSA platform, and I'm saying it again. That idea of throwing 100,000 Ghana cedis to 500 businesses doesn't work. Supporting youth entrepreneurs is not calling 500 entrepreneurs and give 1,000 cedis each to say go back. And we don't do it. We don't do it like that anywhere. We should, because the joy comes from people hearing that the government has given 100 businesses this amount of money.
The numbers game.
Yeah, the numbers game. It's not working. Identifying truly the businesses that are doing well and the businesses that really have the potential to scale is very key, because that's what the VCs do. That's the job that they do. So it's very important. We need to stop the polarization, because I think that the number of incentives they introduce are good. The you start program and all of that are good, but it's not really about the numbers. One person can become a unicorn for the whole place. So we should pay attention to that as well.
Okay, so that's one person can solve all. I mean, if you have a Facebook in there, hey, it could solve everybody's problem rather than give them money to plenty people. That's what the big men have said. You heard them right here on set in the morning. All too soon, the time is up. Even if they gave us a lot more time, we couldn't have pulled it off. There are so many other questions that we've not handled. We've not even gone into the tech space. But it's Z in the morning, wrapping up. It's a minute to 11:20, so that NYA, the brand, takes up. Kingsley Ochiri is an investment professional. Worship Joshua Frimpong is a co-founder and managing director of Adani Chemists Limited. And Isaac Awa is the CEO of Melo Technologies. Wrapping up on doing business in Ghana. It's all too soon the week has come to an end. The TGI Triple F, thank God, is finally Friday. It's come to an end. we would come back next week and do it all over again, doing the most interesting talks, coming with the biggest brains in the space. They've committed to coming back next week for us to continue the conversation. I know they've committed. We've signed on to it already. It's been a great conversation, people. As always, before we leave, pray like it only depends on God, but work like it only depends on you. Jerry Ham, I'm out. We'll do this again on Monday. Thank you.
In the heart of Accra, nestled in the vibrant neighborhood of East Legon and New Beacon, a 360 multimedia firm has emerged. Introducing Z Multimedia. With a steadfast focus on lifestyle, leisure, and business, we set out to bring high-value oriented programs that captivate the taste and desires of our audience. From the captive